Hello folks, and welcome to Noob-Splaining. My name is Wolf. Now, if this is your first time around here, then this is where I explain the crazy, over-the-top world of Warhammer 40,000 that nerds like me love so much. In this particular series, I'm looking at the new combat patrol boxes, comparing them to the old versions, and giving you a basic idea of how the units should be used and what to add next to your collection. So, hit subscribe, grab a drink, settle in, and get comfy. Prepare for a Noob-Splaining session. Hello folks, so this week we're taking a look at the Genestealer Cults, Genestealer Cults, the Genestealer Cults Combat Patrol box set. Now, before we get into that though, if you have any spare change, even if it's just £1 or $1, please consider donating to my Just Giving page for the Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital for the charity boxing event I'm doing in November. On the bright side, my body transformation is coming on nicely, and I'm feeling more positive about my match every day. But you're not here to listen to me talk about how much of a giga I'm becoming. You're here to listen to me take the piss out of 40k. But if you can donate anything, then the link should be in the video description, and thank you if you do. Right, now let's have a brief look at the history of the Genestealer Cults, and then at what's in the box. So to start this off, I want to make it very clear to everyone that back in 2nd edition rules, the way combat worked was very fucking different to how it works now, and one of the most frightening units in melee was the fucking Genestealer itself, and a Genestealer brood is more than capable of tearing Space Marine Terminator assault units into shreds. And now many of you will probably think that Genestealer Cults are a fairly new faction, as their first standalone codex dropped at 8th edition, but in reality they have existed long before 2nd edition even came out, and technically the cults are a sub-faction of the Tyranids, in the same way the Harlequins are a sub-faction of the Eldari. So, time for a history lesson. Pull up your sandbag and get comfy. In 1989, which is probably older than most of you, the first edition of Space Hulk hit, and is still to this day the best version of that game, and in my opinion the best game in a box that Games Workshop ever did. Now I'm sure you've come across Space Hulk, either the board game or the many video games at some point, but basically it pits a squad or two of Terminators armed with Stormbolters and a single heavy flamer against hordes of pure straight Genestealers. So, not exactly a fair fight for the Space Marines. Space Hulk then got 2 expansions. The first expansion, Deathwing, primarily added more weapons for the Marines, including the Assault Cannon, Lightning Claws, Thunder Hammers and Storm Shields, Chain Fist Power Swords, Cyclone Missile Launcher Systems, Psychers, Terminator Captains and Grenade Launchers, giving the Marines a fighting fucking chance to actually win a game or two. So in the next expansion, called Genestealer, it was the Genestealers' turn for some new units, and they got Genestealer Hybrids, armed with an array of weapons that were frankly fucking useless against Terminator armour. Also, in melee combat, the hybrids had about as much chance of survival as a quad paraplegic in the Hunger Games. Also, where the fuck did they find all the humans on a Space Hulk in the first place to turn them into hybrids? But in fairness, at this point in the game, Space Hulk wasn't necessarily set on a Space Hulk in space. And the Space Wolf expansion for the game, which was released in a White Dwarf, made it clear that in this particular one, it was actually on a Hive world. And something else that annoyed the fuck out of me with the Genestealer expansion is that it also introduced rules for Marines in power armour, which were about as much use as tits on a flat fish when it comes to fighting Genestealers. Frankly, the entire Genestealer expansion was a bigger letdown than CM Punk's MMA career. The lore, however, in those expansions was the start of something much, much bigger. The idea was the Genestealers were the scouts for a much more dangerous enemy, and would take over planets and infect the population, preparing them all to be the all-you-can-eat buffet for the Tyranids. After the release of Space Hulk the following year in 1990, we got the release of Advanced Space Crusade, which pitted Tyranid warriors against Space Marine scouts. I shit you not. And I thought the Terminators in Space Hulk had it bad. I never got round to playing Advanced Space Crusade, but I can guarantee several million Space Marine scouts got eaten. The premise of the game is that the scouts are trying to destroy a Tyranid hive ship by destroying all of its vital organs before too many Tyranids wake up and eat them. That premise was the inspiration behind the Death Watch chapter, because let's face it, that's the kind of shit the Death Watch do before they eat breakfast. The Tyranids and the Genestealer Cults were part of the new Tyranid faction that Games Workshop was planning with the soon-to-be-released 2nd edition of 40k that would hit shelves way back in 1993. And so they had already started introducing us to the faction through those 2 board games, the Stealers in Space Hulk and the Tyranid Hive Warriors in Advanced Space Crusade. The lore of how Genestealers take over planets was already there, but it wouldn't be until quite some time later they added the bit about the Tyranids coming to eat them all after several generations. Now, a couple of fun facts for you. The Genestealers were actually based on the Xenomorph from the Alien films, and the Tyranid Hive warriors loosely based on the Alien Queen, while the rest of the Tyranids were inspired by the bugs from the original Starship Troopers book. The power armor in that book is also what inspired the Space Marines power armor, even though the movie versions of the Starship Troopers look like they're cosplaying as Imperial Guard, and the bolter itself is based on the M41A pulse rifle, with both firing higher explosive armor-piercing rounds. Anyway, so that's the history of the Tyranids and the Genestealers, and the truth is that although the Genestealer Cults didn't get a standalone codex until 8th edition, they existed for about 4 years before 40k was a tabletop battle game, and the Cult's army list itself was included in the Tyranids 2nd edition codex. Also included in that codex was a list of Imperial Guard vehicles the Cult has liberated that you can use in the army, and top of that list is a fucking Land Raider. Yes, that's right, Genestealers and Land Raiders on the same fucking side. In 2nd edition, this was a fucking horrifying prospect. That's basically a squad of Freddy Kruegers on PCP with fire support from the fucking Battlestars Galactica and Pegasus. Right, so let's move on to the actual box set. First thing I want to say that is I've noticed a lot of the other box sets used to have big nasty vehicles in them, like Dreadnoughts and Rhinos, and these have been disappearing. The Sisters box set is a prime example, as they lost both a Dreadnought and a Rhino, but I'm sure if they look behind the fridge they'll find it. In fairness though, most combat patrols are meant to be a balanced introduction to the game and give you a feel for how that faction plays. As a result, most combat patrol sets don't really have the units that can deal with a Dreadnought or a heavily armoured vehicle. Then we get to this box set that has 17 models, of which 7 of them are vehicles. Admittedly, they are on the lighter side when it comes to army, but that's still 7 vehicles. One thing this Genestealer Cults box set is missing though, is the actual fucking Genestealers. Now the pure stream Genestealers have been hit by the nerf bat over the years, or maybe they've just evolved. Either way, they have gained a wound, but lost a massive 2 on their strength, dropping them from 6 to 4 since 2nd edition. Anyway, we haven't got any of them in the box, so let's have a look at what we do get. A Jackal Alphas riding a bike with a sniper rifle, an Achilles Ridge Runner, 5 Atalan Jackals, 4 of which are on dirt bikes and 1's on a quad bike, and 10 hybrid metamorphs that can be built as Acolyte hybrids. Do this. You'll understand why when I explain this faction's special army rule. Now the Alphas is your army leader, and about as dangerous in melee as a plastic spork. His job is to zip around the battlefield, avoiding getting into melee and shooting stuff with his sniper rifle. Make sure he is the first unit to fire every turn, as any unit he attacks then gives the rest of your army rerolls on hits of 1 when attacking the same unit. Fuck me a character model that can't melee. Now the Ridge Runner is your fire support vehicle, so equip it with a spotter to give it a better chance to hit, meaning you can roll to hit on 3s rather than 4s, and then equip it with a rocket launcher and go shoot the enemy up with its massive 36-inch range, strength 9 and 3 attacks. The Atalans with their bikes and the quad are meant as close in fire support, although they only have auto pistols, which are about as much use as a plastic sandwich in 40k, but if the bikers end their turn within 6 inches of an enemy unit, they can then throw a load of demo charges at the enemy. So roll a d6 for each enemy model, and on a 4+ it takes a mortal wound. That's a bit fucking nasty, frankly. Plus they can swap their close combat weapons for power weapons. Absolutely do this, as after you have thrown those demo charges, your opponent is going to be pissed off if you just murdered half their squad or more. Plus, you can then declare a fucking charge and finish them off. As for the quad, if your enemy has a tough vehicle or character, give it the mining laser. If your enemy has lots of infantry, give it the heavy stubber. But really, you want to be using this squad in melee to kill units, but while you're getting them into position, you might as well roll some dice from those big guns on the quad. Now the Acolyte hybrids are pretty much melee only, as again they have auto pistols that are frankly shite. 2 can have the heavy mining tool. Do this. In the meantime, don't fuck about and get them into combat. Also give one of them the cult icon instead of its auto pistol. That icon allows you to replace D3 models that have been killed each time it's your turn, unless you're on an objective marker, in which case it is 3 models, and you're not going to miss that missing auto pistol. You need to make them the Acolytes, as the Acolytes have the battle line keyword. Let me explain. Finally, don't worry about any of your units dying, because like Necrons, these fuckers can just keep coming back, especially if they are battle line. So let me explain this army special rule, the rule of cult ambush. Basically, every time a unit is destroyed, roll a d6. On a 4+, you put that unit into the cult ambush reserves box, an area off the game table basically. Unless it's a battle line unit, then don't roll the dice and just put the unit straight into the box. You see now why I said make them acolytes, not metamorphs. Then place an ambush token anywhere on the battlefield, but more than 9 inches horizontally from any enemy units. The enemy then has until their reinforcement stage of their turn, which is the end phase of the movement turn, to move any model except an aircraft within 9 inches of an ambush token. If they do, the token is removed. If they don't, for each token still on the table, you pick any one of your squads in the ambush box and set it back up with at least one of the models on the ambush token, and keep doing this for each ambush token still on the table. Note, however, the jackals when being reset up this way must be within 6 inches of a table edge. So basically, make sure you put your tokens well away from the enemy, so you can bring your squads back next turn. The Acolytes and Neophyte Hybrids are the only 2 units in the army to have the battle line keyword, so if they die, they are definitely going in the box. All the other units get a 4+ roll, so say you lose a squad of Acolytes and Neophytes and a squad of Pure Strain Stealers all in the same turn. The Acolytes and Neophytes go straight into the ambush box, and that's 2 tokens to place. You then roll a d6 for the Stealers and get a 5, so they go into the box as well, and that gives you another token. So you place your 3 tokens around the battlefield, and the enemy manages to get rid of one by moving any unit within 9 inches of it. You can then set back up any 2 of the 3 squads in the ambush box, with a 3rd waiting in there until you can place another token. Also, pretty much every unit in this army that is not a vehicle can deep strike, and they have some stratagems allowing you to take units off the table and bring them back next turn, handy if you got outflanked. So what to add? Well, bulk out your Acolyte squads to the maximum number of 6, with them being battle line units, and possibly add the Neophyte units too as their battle line, but they are a bit weak, but they do just keep on coming back. Plus both squads can benefit from the icon, replacing models every turn, which will probably make your enemy focus fire on a squad until it's proper dead, allowing you to bring them back next turn with the ambush tokens. If your enemy is smart, they will reduce your squads to just a couple of models and not finish them off, meaning you can't bring back the full squad. But because of the icons, they will then slowly regen over the game. You have lots of choices as well of lots of little mini characters you can chuck into squads. This will bolster the squads, but the mini characters can't use that ambush ability, just normal units only. So once a character is dead, it stays dead, but the unit it was with can still come back. Now the Stealers and Abhorrents are your main melee force, and as for heavy armour, that's the Goliath Rock Grinder, which also doubles as a transport. Looking at all the rules for the Genestealer Cults, they are a very deceptively powerful army, and the fact that you can keep bringing them back is going to demoralise many of your opponents, as they become a better swarm army than the Tyranids or the Orcs. Initial thoughts is that they are easy to pick up, but it's going to take you several games, maybe more, to master them. Once you do, however, you'll be surrounding, ambushing and destroying your opponents with ease. Once I've completed my current armies, I will be looking for a new one, and this army list has really piqued my interest. And so there we have it, folks, and that brings us to the end of this video. If you made it this far and haven't subscribed yet, please do so. If you're still listening at this point though, thank you for taking the time to watch my content, and I have another small favour to ask of you. Like the video, leave a comment, but most importantly, remember to show it to someone who could do with some Noob-Splaining in their life. Take care, folks. I'll see you next time.